Okay, so let's now repeat the process for the mouth of the character. And this time I'm going to go a little bit faster through the entire thing because I think we don't really need to stay for too long on this part of the process, as it's basically repeating more or less what we've done so far. So let's get through this in the fastest way possible. So I'm going to start by creating a locator. Let's move it up. And let's place it where we think we might need it. In this case, I'm just going to place it here at the corner of the mouth. I'm going to start from there. Let's duplicate that. And I'm going to have another one here. I'm going to duplicate that, and I'm going to set this guy to 0 right there. Then I'm going to take this guy, duplicate it, and just get rid of the negative sign to create a mirror of it. Then duplicate this one and do the same. Then let's duplicate this guy and move it over here. Maybe a little bit lower. And these two friends a little bit higher. Okay. Let's take this guy, duplicate it, and this time enter a negative sign. And lastly, let's duplicate this guy, set it to 0 on X, and bring it a little bit lower. So that's more or less what I'm going to use for the character's mouth. Of course, depending on the character that you have and the requirements that it has for its animation, you might need more or less of these controls. So it's totally up to whatever the character is going to be doing. And now let's select everything. Let's bring them over. And let's start placing them in their appropriate locations. Oh, looks like we lost one. That should be in the middle. Let's see if there's anybody. Oh, here he is. So let's copy the Z value and paste it onto this guy. There you go. So I'm going to start by moving forward until I have the middle ones. Right there. Trying to get them inside of the volume of the mouth, even though that's not necessarily going to be an issue. And now let's control select them, or actually control deselect them, and let's move the next ones, which are these guys right here. Those are the ones that I'm interested in. That's great. And now I'm going to get just the corner ones to their proper location. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to rename them. So let's start by this guy. This guy is going to be locator right, mouth corner. This guy is going to be locator left, mouth corner. This guy is going to be locator left, top, lip, locator right, top, lip, locator center, top, lip, locator left bottom, lip, this one right bottom, lip, center bottom, lip. There we go. So now that we have these guys like that, I'm going to create a parent for them, which is going to be this guy duplicated, 0 on X, and this guy is going to be called parent center mouth deformers. Oops, this tends to happen sometimes. Okay. Oh, and it's parent, not locator. There we go. And now we're going to take everybody and make them a children of this parent. Let's take the parent and let's move it under the face rig. We're going to create another group locator. Oops. We're going to move it in and reset all of its transforms so it moves over to its parent's location. Let's call it group center mouth. We can collapse the eyebrows. Let's take this, move it into the group. There we go. While we're at it, I'm going to take the weight containers that I've created so far and move them into the weight containers folder. There you go. All right. So now we have these locators. Now we need to create the controls for them. So let's take all of these guys and duplicate them. And these duplicates, we're going to change their shapes. And we're going to make circles out of them. Like that. And let's offset them. So that they also become easier to select. Let's say over here, and I'm going to deselect these and continue offsetting the others. I basically just want to have everybody line up kind of like that. That will do. I'm not going to create a master parent control for all of these because I don't think you would do that or use it in many situations where you want to move all the controls for the mouth at once. You'll probably spend more time just moving them individually. Although we could create a parent for the top group and then a parent for the bottom group, and that would probably help more, and we'll leave the corners untouched. So let's take this guy. Well, first we're going to rename them. So let's select all the controls, which are actually all the ones that have the 2 suffix on them. There we go. Again, I'm going to pause and I'm going to rename these very quickly. Okay. So now let's take this control. As you can see, I've labeled them as controls now. Duplicate that. And let's call this one control top lip, and we're going to change its display to plane. And we're going to place it on top of the 3 locators that we have. Oops, that's not the correct axis, a little bit lower. There we go. So that way we'll know it's the top lip parent. Let's do the same with the bottom one. This one is going to be bottom lip, and we're going to do the same. It's going to be a plane. And let's move it down and make it wider. Cool. So now we have this, and we're going to take the these 3 locators and make them children of the control bottom lip. So now we have that, and we're going to take these 3 and make them children of the control top lip. Perfect. And in the name of organization, I'm gonna create just one parent for everybody. So let's take actually, well, this guy, let's unparent it, and let's call him parent center lips. Okay, and we're going to move it to more or less the middle of everybody, right there. We don't have to be very accurate. And let's change its display shape back to the default. And let's take our current controls and make them a child of it. So we have this control, and the corners. There we go. So now we have all the controls under a single hierarchy, and then we have the actual deforming locators in a different hierarchy. Okay, now it's time to create the containers for each one of these guys. I'm gonna do a few, and then I'll pause the video so you don't have to watch me going through all of them, and when I come back I'm gonna show you what I did. So I'm gonna start by the corner of the mouth. So the tricky part here is that you have to be able to select also the inside of the mouth. You don't want to just end up moving vertices on the outside. So I'm going to select for this part of the character more or less this area. And actually I'm going to go even a little bit further to the loop beyond that. And now let's look at the inside, and I'm going to try to select the same vertices for the same loops, but on the inside, and more or less the same extension. There we go. Anyway, I'm going to be weighting this later on, so let's start with that, and we'll see where that goes. Let's go to the formers, create a container. Oh, looks like we forgot one vertex right there. Let's add it. There you go. Much better. And let's call this guy weight container left mouth corner. And since I know what I selected, oh, actually this is not the left side, it's the right side. I am going now to select the vertices on the other side. And actually, let's see if we can use one of our data lists for this. And let's try turning symmetry on X, and let's see if that... No, it didn't work. I was hoping that by selecting it this way, symmetry would select the other vertex on the other side, since it does work with manual selections, but it doesn't. It's okay. No problem. Let's select them manually. So we went here, here, here. Oh, now it's working. Well, at least I can use it as a guide. So it'll tell me how far I have to go, and then I can turn off symmetry and just manually select the rest. Okay, let's go to the inside. So select here. Do I have to go further? Yeah, have to go one more. Looks like that's it. Yep. So now I can turn off symmetry and just get rid of the selection on this side. And with these guys selected, I'm hoping I'm not missing anyone this side. We're gonna find out soon enough. Create another container. And this guy is going to be the one for the left side. Mouth corner. There we go. So we have 2 containers down. Now we can take care of the top lip container. So I'm going to, well, let's start by adding these vertices right here. And I'm going to go all the way to over here. And maybe also extend myself to these guys over there, and then just play with the weights. Okay, now let's go to the inside of the mouth. Here I don't really need to go that far, because here we will be already at the top of the mouth, and we really don't need to move this part. So this is as far as we need to go. And let's create a container. There we go. Perfect. We're gonna call this guy weight container right top lip. And again, I could use symmetry just to use it as a guide to see how far I need to go to have the same range of vertices selected. But I guess that by now you get the idea. So I'm going to leave it at this, and when I'm done creating all my containers, I'm gonna come back and we can start rigging everything to deform the mouth of the character. So I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, I'm done with creating the weight containers. I'm gonna show you what I got. So I got the mouth corners right here, and as you can see, I have symmetrical containers. Then I have two symmetrical containers for the top lip over here. Then we have this one for the center. Then we have the two for the bottom lip, and as you can see, they also cover more or less the same areas as the top lip containers, and then the one up the bottom. And actually, to create the one for the bottom, I found a very useful trick, which I'm going to show you. First, I took care of creating the ones for both sides of the lip, and then basically using my info and statistics tab, I could select the vertices for one container and then also the ones for the other container. So both selections remain at the same time, and then I would just go ahead and get rid of any vertices that I wouldn't need and add the vertices that I did need, and of course the ones inside of the mouth. And that's the way I created the container for the center. I'm not doing it, I'm just showing you how I did it. So these viewports actually come in very handy. So now that we have all this done, what's next? Well, the next part is going to be the same thing we've done here in the schematic. Again, we have to bring in our containers, we have to bring in the locators, create the influences and hook them up, and that's going to allow us to move the different parts of the geometry using at this point the locators over here that are going to be actually deforming the mouth. So in order to do this, I'm going to again stop the video, take care of everything in here in the schematic, and I'm going to come back when I have it done, so you don't have to spend another 20 minutes or 30 minutes or as long as this is going to take watching me do this. Okay, so I'm going to pause this for a second. I'm going to come back when I'm done. See you soon. Okay, I'm done with my setup right here. As you can see, I have all my containers, the effectors for each container, and the influences. Okay, so everything is set up, and I've also gone and I took the liberty of already dynamically parenting each locator to their respective control. So I can now grab the control and move it, and I can see the deformations happening right there for our character. So now that this is done, what would be the next step? Let's see how the deformations are shaping up. So if I move, let's say, the control for these three guys, you might have noticed something rather odd happening here. And as you can see, when I move this control, I get this really weird deformation right here. Let's talk in a second about why that happens. Before doing so, I'm just going to take care of zeroing out all these guys, because otherwise we have values that prevent us from returning to their original positions. So now that they're zeroed out, let's look at this again. So why do we have that over here? And I'm going to do the same for the top of the mouth so we can see it. Well, what's going on is that we have areas in the mouth where we're having double transformations. And the reason we have those is because if we take a look at our containers, for example, let's take this one right here. It's influencing this area. But that area is also being influenced by this other container. As you can see, it's influencing the same vertices right there. So we have an area that is under the influence of two containers that have two transforms related to them. So that's why we're getting this sort of double transform. So how would we prevent this from happening? How do we ensure that we don't get double transforms in areas where these guys overlap? Well, it's actually quite simple. What we're going to do is we're going to come here and we're going to use a normalizing folder. So this folder is going to enable to normalize all the area of the mouth. So let's call it normalizing folder mouth. And now we take all these influences that we've created for the mouth and we move them into the normalizing folder, and as you can see, we get back our original shape. And now I can take these controls and move them, and everything looks just fine. And it's because each vertex under the influence of weight containers is going to be weighted so that no matter how many influences are affecting it, its weight is never going to be beyond 100%. So that's what the normalizing folder is going to be doing for us. But we still need to do some weighting because we have, some weighting work because we have parts of the mouth, the lips, that should definitely not be moving. So let's take this back to its original position and let's start moving them one by one and see what we get. I'm going to deselect the normalizing folder. Let's move this guy around. Since this guy is the corner of the mouth, I think we're okay with what he is doing. Maybe we're going to soften a little bit the edges. So let's locate that weight container. And let's select the mesh. And let's select the vertices right here at the edge of what the container is affecting. Let's see what weights we have there. That's 100%, obviously. Let's just smooth those out and we get a better transition here for the corner of the mouth. So that softens things up a bit, as you can see. So I'm going to repeat exactly the same for the other container. I'm just going to go ahead and select these guys and smooth them out. Of course, one more thing that I have to check is the inside of the mouth. Which is fine. You want to keep double checking always the formations on the inside of the mouth because you don't want to run into a situation where vertices on the outside are moving and the inside is not, because that at some point might cause interpenetrations from the outside polygons with the inside ones, and it's going to look terrible. So always make sure that the inside of the mouth is also responding to the formations that have a correspondence on the outside. Again, I don't really want to keep you here watching me weight stuff by hand, so I'm going to just keep on working, and when I'm done, we'll come back and take a look at what I did. And I hope that by now you're getting a lot more familiar and comfortable with the weighting tools, the different things they can do, so that you start being more productive when weighting meshes. This is fairly manual and sometimes time-consuming work, but well, that's how it is. Working with deformations on meshes tends to be quite a chore sometimes, so we just have to go through it. So I'll see you in a few minutes, seconds for you, I guess. See you later. Okay, I'm pretty much done. Let me show you what happened here. The first thing I did was, as I was working through, was got rid of the weight right here at the edge of the nose and basically anything on that loop, because I didn't want to disturb the shape of the face in this section based on the movements on the lips, because these movements are going to be used anyway for more like subtle mouth shapes. It's not really going to be the source of dialogue, for example. We will basically use morph targets for that, morph maps. So these controls are intended to help the animator get more subtle expressions from the mouth. So I got rid of that, and then let's go one by one. I softened the edges for the corners of the mouth. For the top, I also softened the two edges where these containers meet the containers on either side, and I softened the top. So basically, the way this moves is very, very soft with the surrounding containers. Then what else we have? For the center one, I also played a little bit with the weighting on the places where it meets the containers around it. And that's basically it. For this one, I just noticed that, for example, I still need to do some work on the vertices down here, because I don't want it to influence them as much. So I will just do that very quickly. Select these 3 vertices and adjust their weights to a much smaller value. And I can do the same with these 3. Now you will notice that we have this strange curve here, and that's because these vertices have more weight than the ones surrounding it. So let's correct that. And let's check this one too. This guy can have a very small amount. And let's also correct this guy. There you go. And of course, the person that is going to have the last word on how these things need to behave is obviously the animator. And based on animator feedback, you might have to go back and correct some of the weighting. But this is the general process and how you would need to follow it to get some controls on the face. So I think what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to create additional controls for other parts of the character's face. And you don't really have to see any of this anymore, because it's exactly the same process all over again. We're just repeating, creating locators, creating weight containers, creating influences, and all that. So I don't think you really need to see any of that any further. So I'm just going to show you the finished facial rig once it's done, and what kind of things I added onto it, so that you can have a better idea of how all it's going to work. So I'll do that in the next video. I'm going to explain what the facial rig is intended to do. So I'll see you over there.